You can't dim a flame that was born from lightning. Chosen ones, listen close. What they did to you wasn't just wrong, it was a declaration of war against something far greater than they understood. They didn't come for just you, they came clawing at the current of the universe itself. And now, that current is turning. They thought they could throw shadows at you and make you disappear. They whispered behind your back like cowards with broken mirrors, because your truth showed them everything they hated about themselves. You didn't provoke them, you revealed them. And nothing frightens a liar more than a walking, breathing truth. Before we go deeper, make sure you tap the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment to help this message travel to every chosen one who needs to hear it. When you engage, it tells the algorithm this isn't just another video. It's a signal. And signals like this, they change lives. They remind people who've been targeted, gaslit, and discarded that they're not alone, and they're not wrong for being different. Now let's make this clear. The power of being chosen is not pretty, it's not peaceful, it's haunting. It's the kind of energy that walks into a room and shifts everything without speaking. That's what they hated. That's why they plotted. You never even had to raise your voice. Your presence was already louder than their pride could handle. They didn't betray a person. They declared war on a force. The universe doesn't choose based on titles, followers, or noise. It chooses based on weight. Can you carry the light without dropping it when it burns? Can you walk through fire and still protect others from the heat? That's what sets you apart. And that's why they came for you. They called you too sensitive, too intense, too much. No, you were too real, and for people built on facades, your realness was radioactive. You reminded them of the parts they buried. That's why even strangers are stepping in, because the lies told about you don't match the light they see when they meet you. They feel the disconnect. They feel the injustice. You are not alone, not now, not ever. You were chosen because you can survive what others wouldn't even endure for a day. You were the storm they tried to outsmart, and now it's circling back. They played with lightning, thinking it was just a spark. But you are the storm. You are the echo that never needed a mic to shake the ground. Their lies were bricks, hoping to build a cage around your name. But the universe is in demolition mode, and it's swinging back. They are watching their own stories fall apart. The fake friendships are unraveling, the masks are cracking, and the silence you once gave them, that was grace. Now even that is being removed. To every chosen one who ever sat in a room feeling like a stranger, wondering why everyone suddenly turned cold, it wasn't your imagination. It was your power turning their comfort into discomfort. You became the mirror that wouldn't lie. They didn't treat you like trash because you had no value. They did it because they hoped you'd forget your worth. But here you are, rising. So no more asking, why did they hurt me? The question now is, why did I ever doubt what I carry? Your enemies aren't haunted by you. They're haunted by your resilience. You didn't just survive. You became proof that truth walks, that light lives, that silence speaks when it's backed by power. And remember this, what hunts the chosen always ends up hunted by the universe. Drop the number 77 in the comments if you feel this in your spirit. Type, I'm still standing if they tried to break you but failed, because what's coming next isn't revenge, it's balance. And balance doesn't play fair, it plays final. Number 1. They mistook quiet for weak. Now they're choking on the storm. They started. You thought I was silent because I was scared. No, I was letting you talk long enough to bury yourself in your own lies. Chosen ones, this is the part where the masks come off, not just theirs, but yours too, because for too long you've been walking around with your power wrapped in silence, thinking it made you small. But silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's survival. It's what happens when a storm watches the field before it breaks the sky in half. They mistook your calm for surrender. They thought because you didn't fight back, you had nothing to fight with. But here's what they didn't understand. You were never the attack. They were just loud enough to expose themselves. You were gathering. You were aligning. And now the universe is making its move through you. Let's get one thing straight. They saw your light before you even knew it existed. That's why they smiled while circling you like vultures. That's why they praised you publicly and poisoned you privately. Because people don't destroy what they pity, they destroy what they fear. And they feared you. Not the you who tried to fit in, not the you who stayed quiet to keep the peace. They feared the you who didn't flinch when the storm came, the one who didn't fall apart when the crowd scattered. That kind of composure? It's unsettling to cowards, it's magnetic to chaos, and it's a mirror to liars. You didn't ruin their system, you exposed how it was never built to handle someone real. You were never weak. You were choosing your moment. That's what they'll never admit. Their biggest fear wasn't that you'd lose, it was that you'd wake up. And now you have. That stillness they laughed at, it was the eye of something massive. And now that it's moving, they're scrambling to dodge the consequences of battles they started. Some of you still ask, why me? Why was I the target? Because you were marked. Not by status, not by popularity, but by alignment. The universe doesn't pick favorites, it picks those who can handle weight. You were built for it. And the moment you started walking in truth, their lies began to collapse under their own weight. You scare them, chosen ones, not because you hurt them, but because you didn't need them. You walked away without begging, you rose without explaining, and you're healing without revenge. But let's be honest, you've doubted yourself, haven't you? You sat in the silence, wondering if maybe you were the problem, wondering if maybe they were right about you. That's what darkness does. It makes you question your own shine. But hear this. The fact that they had to lie to take you down is proof you were above them to begin with. Power doesn't scream. It doesn't perform. Power sits back and watches people hang themselves with the very rope they swore was yours. And that's what's happening now. The universe is no longer asking for balance, it's enforcing it. Those who played with your name, twisted your light, and sabotaged your path were not just fighting you, they were trying to cheat the system of alignment. And that system, it doesn't play games, it doesn't lose track, it doesn't forget the weight of betrayal. You were chosen not because you're better, but because you're built different. You're wired for survival in environments that melt others. You're designed to carry fire and not burn out. You don't just hold light, you become it. Let them call you too much, too sensitive, too cold, too quiet. That's just code for too powerful to manipulate. They played checkers with someone who thinks like chess. They thought they saw the whole board, but they didn't know the universe already had your moves mapped generations ahead. You're not playing to win anymore. You are the win. You are the proof, the lesson, the mirror, the reminder that silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strategy, precision, patience. Let them panic. Let them gather in corners to compare lies and rewrite their stories. The truth is on its way, and it's showing up loud. Your elevation is their exposure, and there's nothing they can do about it. So stop doubting your design. Stop trying to be palatable for people who only loved you when you were pretending to be small. You were never weak. You were waiting. And now you move. Number 2. Cowards never throw punches. They poison the air and pretend they didn't do it. They couldn't kill your spirit, so they tried to confuse it. Cowards don't strike, they slither. Chosen ones, open your eyes. Not everything that hurt you came with a blade in the back. Some of the deepest wounds bled in silence, inflicted not with violence, but with manipulation, delay, and deceit. You were attacked, not by open enemies, but by hands that claimed to care for you. No warning, no honesty. Just slow poison served in smiles. That's how cowards move. They don't stand toe-to-toe. They don't face what they fear. They hide in plain sight, whisper in corners, smile while setting traps, then step back and play innocent when everything around you collapses. No, they didn't throw the punch, but they handed it to someone else and stood in the crowd like a spectator. They didn't fight you directly because they knew what would happen if they did. They knew your strength, your presence, your truth. A direct hit would have exposed their weakness, and their lies wouldn't stand a chance in that light. So they attacked in the shadows, where confusion becomes a weapon and silence is their shield. They used silence like a noose, one rumor here, a twisted look there. A little cold shoulder, a little doubt slipped into someone else's ear. They built a storm from fog, and you stood there thinking, did I do something wrong? That's how well they played the game. That's how cowards try to destroy the chosen, not with volume, but with erosion, not with confrontation, but with corrosion. They chip away at your confidence, hoping you'll start to question your own power. They disguise sabotage as concern. They plant fear in your soil and hope it chokes out your growth. But what they never expected was this: you were a seed. They dragged your name through the dirt, forgetting that's where seeds start. And while they were busy trying to bury you, the universe was watering your roots. Every lie they told, every back turned, every cold goodbye that came with no explanation, all of it fed your fire. All of it strengthened the system the universe set up around you. They whispered in dark rooms, but the truth doesn't stay buried. It vibrates, it echoes, it finds its way back. And now, those shadows they lived in, they're crumbling under your light. Let's be real. You saw signs, gut feelings, sudden shifts in energy, people you trusted pulling back but never saying why. And because you're built with loyalty, you didn't push back. You gave them space. You gave them chances. You gave them the benefit of the doubt. And they used every inch of that grace to plot against you. They watched your vulnerability like a hawk, waiting for the moment they could twist it into weakness. Not because you were wrong, but because they were never strong enough to be honest. They don't fight fair, chosen ones, because fair fights expose who they really are, and cowards are terrified of exposure. That's why they operate in confusion, because if you can't point to it, if you can't prove it, they can deny it ever happened. But let me tell you this, your spirit knows what it felt. You don't need receipts when your soul is holding the memory. Don't gaslight yourself trying to make their betrayal easier to explain. It wasn't complicated. It was calculated. And still, they failed. They tried to cancel you with gossip, tried to erase you with exclusion, tried to mute your shine by getting others to look away from you. But the universe had already marked you, stamped, sealed, protected. You were never relying on their approval anyway. You were aligned with something bigger. They played chess with pawns, not realizing you were a storm playing a different game altogether. The kind of power you carry doesn't need validation. It provokes exposure. The longer you stand in your truth, the louder their lies echo back at them. And now the silence they used as a weapon. It's starting to speak against them. Now people are noticing. Patterns are breaking, the victim masks are slipping, and even strangers are starting to feel the truth that you couldn't put into words. Because when the universe moves to defend a chosen one, it doesn't shout. It shifts. And suddenly the people who believed the lies, they start to see cracks. They feel the energy shift. And here's what really burns them. You didn't fall apart. They wanted you broken, bitter, bent out of shape. They wanted your silence to become your prison. But instead, you built from it. You didn't collapse. You constructed. You didn't rage. You rose. You showed the kind of grace that humiliates cowards more than any revenge ever could. Because now they're being haunted, not by ghosts, but by your growth. Every level you rise to now is a reminder of the war they waged and lost. Every time someone recognizes your energy, your authenticity, your light, they feel it. Every time someone says, "You were right," or "I see it now," they flinch. That's what happens when sabotage fails. You become the proof that the lie was never stronger than the truth. So let this burn into your mind. You were not crazy. You were targeted. You were not too emotional. You were intuitive. You were not overreacting. You were under attack by people too cowardly to admit they couldn't compete with your spirit. You were not weak. You were reserved, measured, focused. You were listening to the universe while they were busy trying to mute your signal. And now, that signal is louder than ever. So quit mourning the betrayals. Stop replaying the confusion. It wasn't your fault. You didn't ask to be chosen, but you are. And they didn't attack you for what you did wrong. They attacked you for what you do right, just by existing. You carry a vibration that cracks false foundations. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to disrupt. And they felt that. That's why they came in whispers instead of war cries, because they knew. You don't survive storms like you become them. Let them watch now. Let them sit in the ruins of their own design. You never needed to fight dirty. You just needed to outlast. And chosen ones, you did. You were born to be misunderstood, to be doubted, to be whispered about, because what lives inside you doesn't fit their story. It never did, and it never will. So keep shining, keep walking, keep letting the universe do what it does best. Balance every lie with truth, and every betrayal with blessing, because cowards don't fight fair, and that's exactly why they never win. Number 3. They laughed too soon. You were just aligning while the universe was rearranging the board. Real power doesn't scream. It shifts the room without a word. And when alignment locks in, resistance doesn't break it. It breaks against it. Chosen ones, let them keep celebrating what they think is your silence. Let them toast to what they thought was your fall. What they didn't know is that while they mocked your stillness, you were sinking with a force they can't even comprehend. You weren't losing, you were aligning. And alignment? It doesn't show up with noise, it shows up with undeniable shifts. They thought your quiet meant you gave up. No, your quiet was the signal that the system had activated. When the universe selects someone, it doesn't send fireworks. It doesn't post announcements. It begins to bend reality around them. Quietly, relentlessly, without asking permission. They mistook the pause in your steps as hesitation. They couldn't see that you were listening for deeper instructions, tuning out the noise, cutting the static, letting chaos burn itself out so you could move from alignment, not emotion. Because that's the difference between them and you. They move from ego, you move from truth. They throw tantrums, you hold frequencies. They fight people, you operate on laws, universal law, the kind that rewrites outcomes behind the scenes, the kind that reroutes delays into divine setups. And when those laws are in motion, no sabotage, no rumor, no lie can stop what's coming. They thought they won, thought they pushed you out, shut you down, left you for done. But the thing about alignment is, it doesn't just fix your path, it destroys anything and anyone who stands in the way of it. So let them pretend they claimed some kind of victory. They won the noise, not the war. Because what's coming next? It isn't your comeback, it's their collapse. They don't understand what they triggered. When they tried to fight you, they weren't fighting one person, they were fighting the system that chose you. And the universe never loses its own. They thought the delays were punishment. They thought the silence meant defeat. But your delays were recalibration. Your silence was sacred. The universe was recalculating routes, shifting timelines, removing people who couldn't go where you're headed. And now the recalibration is over. Chosen ones, you've been sitting in stillness long enough. You've let them think they had the upper hand. But the truth is, they were fighting ghosts. Their pride battled the reflection of what they can never become. Their hatred aimed at the echo of a reality that doesn't serve them anymore because the system is shifting and your alignment is the reason. You didn't force the outcome. You didn't beg, scream, or fight dirty. You aligned, and everything started to move on its own. That's the part that burns them the most. You didn't chase revenge. You became evidence. They tried to manipulate. You stayed in flow. They tried to control. You stayed surrendered. They tried to block the door. You became the door. And that's why they're panicking now. Because all the false victories they claimed are falling apart. Their wins were built on sand, their smiles were built on scripts, and now alignment is sending waves to wash it all away. You never needed noise, you needed clarity, you needed space, you needed the lies to get loud enough to expose themselves, and that's exactly what happened. That's why alignment never shouts, because when it speaks, the whole structure bends, the lies collapse under their own weight. The fake alliances fall apart without you lifting a finger. You're not just walking into a new chapter, you're walking into a reality shaped by your alignment, not your anger, not your pain, but your ability to trust the timing when nothing made sense. And now it's making sense. Now people who doubted you are quiet. Now opportunities that felt blocked are opening without a knock. Now doors that were slammed shut are being replaced with gates built for your frequency. That's what happens when alignment locks in. It reshapes reality around your truth. No announcements, no drama, just undeniable shift. So stop explaining, stop trying to prove anything, let the results speak, let the universe handle the reveal, and when it does, it won't whisper, it'll echo. Let them wonder how it all turned around. Let them choke on the silence they used as a weapon, because now that silence is working against them. You're not coming back, you're coming through. And this time, it won't be quiet. Because alignment doesn't just fix things, it remakes them. It removes what isn't real, what isn't meant, what can't carry the next level. And it does it without warning. That's the power you're walking with now. And that power, it terrifies the ones who thought they'd buried you. Let them feel it. Let them watch what they tried to kill rise into something untouchable. Alignment didn't shout, but it's about to roar. Number 4, they didn't break you. They burned off everything that couldn't come with you. The fire wasn't meant to destroy you. It was sent to expose what was fake, burn what was weak, and leave only what was real. Chosen ones, listen carefully. You weren't being punished. That betrayal, that isolation, that silence that screamed louder than words. It wasn't the universe turning on you. It was the universe clearing the path. You weren't losing. It was a refinement process. You were being purified, not punished. Elevated, not erased. They didn't see your worth, not because it wasn't there, but because their eyes couldn't comprehend light that didn't beg to be seen. You didn't fit their mold. You didn't shrink when they expected you to grovel. You stood in your stillness, and that alone was enough to make them attack. Because what you carry, it convicts the false. It makes the fake uncomfortable. Your existence is a mirror that shatters delusion. They called you the problem, but they were really naming their own reflection. You were never the villain. You were the reveal. That betrayal, it wasn't an accident. It was a setup, a divine one. The masks had to fall. The illusions had to die. And the only way that could happen was by pressure. The universe allowed the fire not to punish you, but to burn off the parts of you still tied to people who couldn't breathe your frequency. You were being purified. That's why it hurt so much. That's why you couldn't explain it. That's why the people you loved the most turned into strangers overnight. Because this wasn't about loss. It was about removal. You couldn't go where you're destined to with dead weight attached to your spirit. You couldn't carry your calling while dragging their comfort zone with you. They turned on you not because you changed, but because you grew, and your growth exposed their stagnation. You evolved, and your evolution felt like judgment to people who refused to shift. And instead of rising with you, they tried to cut your wings. But here you are, still rising, still glowing, still becoming everything they said you'd never be. Understand this. Betrayal doesn't destroy chosen ones. It reveals them. It shows who's real, who's fake, who's aligned, and who's dead weight. It teaches you who your spirit already sensed was out of sync. It's brutal clarity in the form of heartbreak. And yes, it breaks your heart, but it saves your soul. You were never weak for trusting. You were never foolish for loving. That's your gift. But even gifts must be guarded, because when you're a system breaker, when your very presence carries codes that dismantle old patterns, people don't always celebrate that. Some will pretend to cheer while praying for your fall. Some will stand next to you only to copy your blueprint and sell it with a fake smile. And when the universe sees that, it moves fast. It strips, it shakes, it slices through connections that no longer serve your future. And the thing is, you often won't understand it while it's happening. You'll feel abandoned, forgotten, punished. But you weren't being punished. You were being positioned. The silence was a signal. The loss was protection. The confusion, that was your purification chamber. And now that you've survived it, now that you've walked through that fire and come out with your soul intact, you're no longer guessing who's for you. You know. You've seen what happens when loyalty is tested. You've watched people fold under pressure. You've felt the sting of being discarded, talked about, and underestimated. And yet, here you are, stronger, sharper, and more awake than ever. Stop playing small just because small minds can't grasp your scale. Stop shrinking your power to fit into spaces designed to limit it. You are a disruptor, a mirror, a reminder. Your frequency doesn't bend to systems, it breaks them. That's why they tried to isolate you, so you'd forget, so you'd doubt, so you'd question your worth in the middle of the storm, because if a chosen one forgets who they are, they stop being a threat. But now you remember, now you see it. The betrayal wasn't a wall, it was a doorway, and those who pushed you through it didn't realize they were sending you straight into your alignment. So let them say what they want. Let them rewrite history in their favor. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. The truth has gravity, and it's pulling everything back into balance. You didn't just survive, you were refined. That glow they see now, that unshakable presence, that's not revenge. That's the residue of purification. That's what's left after the fire burned away the fake. So walk boldly now, speak with clarity, move with force, because the next level isn't for the fragile, and you're no longer carrying the weight of what tried to break you. You're pure now. And nothing hits harder than a chosen one who knows they were never being punished. They were being prepared. Number 5. You didn't lose people. You survived the collapse of what couldn't carry your calling. Rejection isn't always cruelty, it's construction. Some exits are disguised evacuations from buildings the universe planned to demolish anyway. Chosen ones, listen close. You didn't lose them. You were protected from them. What felt like loss was deliverance. What looked like betrayal was prevention. You weren't abandoned. You were extracted. Because some people weren't just wrong for you. They were dangerous to your future. And the universe saw what you couldn't, heard conversations you weren't in, and read intentions that never reached your ears. So it stepped in. You begged for clarity, and the universe responded with separation. You thought you were being stripped of support, when really you were being stripped of sabotage. The people who left you didn't walk away. They were removed, not because they were weak, but because they were wrong for the level you're stepping into. They were never built to walk beside someone chosen. You think you lost people, but you dodged bullets, disguised as best friends, lovers, mentors, and soul ties. Some of them smiled while envying your light. Others clapped for you in public, but cursed your name in silence. And the universe? It doesn't play games with energy like that. It doesn't let fakes live too long in the orbit of someone marked for impact. So it cleaned house. It let things fall apart without your permission. It let them drift, shift, ghost, or betray. And it hurt. Yes, it hurt. Because your heart was pure. Because your loyalty ran deep. Because you thought their presence was permanent. But chosen one, here's the brutal truth. Permanence has nothing to do with duration. It has everything to do with purpose. And their purpose was already fulfilled. They were never meant to stand in your next season. They were scaffolding, not structure, temporary support, not eternal pillars. Their exit wasn't an attack on your value, it was confirmation of it. You're not just walking into something new, you're being positioned for something divine, and the divine never mixes destiny with dysfunction. That's why they had to go. Don't mourn the ones who disappeared when the fire got hot. Some people can only walk with you in your winter, not your war. They like you better when you're unsure, off balance, still searching. But the moment your glow starts making noise, the moment your clarity starts cracking ceilings, they shrink, they sabotage, or they silently slip away. Don't chase after ghosts. Don't dig up what was divinely buried. Let their silence speak. Let the distance confirm what their words never could. You didn't lose them. You outgrew the illusion of who they pretended to be. Because chosen ones aren't called to be liked. You're called to be aligned. You were never sent here to blend in. You were sent here to break systems, to confront falsehood with your presence, to disrupt comfort zones with your truth. That type of frequency doesn't attract the masses. It exposes the unready. And that's what happened. You stepped into alignment, and it triggered a shake-up. Your glow activated the purge, not because you're arrogant, but because your light became a spotlight, and not everyone was ready to be seen. Some people loved you until your growth challenged their comfort. Some rode with you until your purpose demanded discipline. Some celebrated you until your elevation highlighted their stagnation. Let them go. Let the doors close. Let the story end. Because what's ahead of you, it doesn't have room for snakes in disguise or passengers playing dead weight. The higher the calling, the tighter the circle, and now the universe is making room for real connections, real allies, real ones who match your frequency, not your fear. Your future isn't built on familiar, it's built on faith. So stop grieving what was protection in disguise. They didn't leave you because you failed. They left because you didn't. You kept growing. You kept shining. You kept believing in your truth when others needed you to doubt it just to feel comfortable in the room. That's why they couldn't stay. Not because you were too much, but because they were never enough to begin with. Not for where you're going, not for what you're carrying, not for the weight of the calling on your life. This is the shift. This is the elevation. This is the divine filtration system at work. Trust it. Because what you're walking into now will require full focus, unshakable clarity, and zero tolerance for spiritual clutter. And the ones who left? They would have collapsed under the pressure of your breakthrough. Let them miss you. Let them wonder. Let them try to rewrite the story. But you keep walking. Because chosen ones don't lose people. They get protected from those who were never built to survive their rise. Number 6. You weren't the problem. You were the mirror that made them see themselves. They didn't fear your voice. They feared what it reflected. Mirrors don't lie. They just show you what you've been avoiding. Chosen ones, let's rip the veil off this thing once and for all. They didn't hate you. They feared you, not because you raised your voice, made a scene, or demanded attention. No, what terrified them was your clarity, your truth, your ability to stand in a room full of masked performers and see straight through the act. You are the mirror, and that's why they came for you. You didn't need to shout. You didn't have to fight dirty. You didn't play the game. You just showed up, quiet, calm, centered. But your silence spoke. Your presence disrupted. Your very existence held up a mirror to their carefully constructed illusions, and that's what they couldn't handle. You never called them out directly. You didn't expose them with rage. But when you looked at them, they flinched. Because you saw too much, heard too deep. You caught what they didn't say. You read what was written between the lines. And that kind of awareness, that level of perception, it scares people who live in shadows. You weren't dangerous because of what you did. You were dangerous because of what you knew, and not even because someone told you, but because your spirit felt it. The lies, the motives, the energy that didn't match the words. You could feel when someone said, "I'm proud of you," but meant, "I'm intimidated by you." You could sense when people clapped for your wins while secretly hoping you'd fall. You didn't overreact. You just saw the truth too early, and they hated you for it. They needed you to be blind, to play dumb, to second-guess yourself. Because if you questioned you, it gave them cover to keep lying. So they whispered, twisted stories, made you feel like the one out of line, like the one doing too much, too deep, too sensitive, too suspicious. No, chosen one, you weren't being paranoid. You were picking up on frequencies they worked hard to hide. And when you didn't hand over your power for their approval, they panicked, because what you refused to give them was control. You didn't sell your truth for acceptance. You didn't shrink your awareness to keep their egos safe. And that kind of integrity, it's lethal to false alliances. It shakes fake friendships. It burns through manipulation like wildfire. So they turned on you, tried to stain your name before you could speak your side, tried to drown your light in gossip, hoping confusion would make people forget what they felt in your presence. But let me say this, clarity doesn't need defense, because clarity is felt in the bones. It's seen in the eyes. And no matter how loud they scream, how much they smear you, how many people they recruit to twist the story, the truth will vibrate louder than any lie ever could. That's why even strangers can sense when you've been wronged. That's why the people who meet you after the smear campaign still say there's something real about you. Because truth isn't just spoken, it's carried. And you carry it. You didn't come to blend in, you came to confront, just by being yourself. Your authenticity is an alarm clock to the sleeping, and not everyone wants to wake up. Some would rather destroy the messenger than face their own reflection. So they tried to blur your image, distort your message, make you doubt your own lens. But the thing about mirrors is, they don't change based on who's looking, they just show the truth. Over and over, until the lie crumbles under the weight of what can't be ignored. You didn't fail, you reflected, you didn't fall apart. You revealed. You didn't lose your mind. You found your alignment, and it cost you their comfort. But trust this, real ones will always recognize what's real. You won't have to explain yourself in every room. You won't have to fight for clarity when you're walking in it. The ones meant to walk with you, they won't flinch when they see themselves in your light. They'll rise with it. So don't dull the mirror. Don't dim your shine. Don't trade your knowing for their acceptance. You were never made to keep them comfortable. You were made to wake up systems that rely on silence to survive. You were born to reflect. So let them fear you. Let them whisper. Let them run. Because the only people afraid of the mirror are the ones lying to themselves. Number 7. They called it order, but it was a cage. And now the whole system is collapsing beneath your feet. They told you to keep the peace, but what they really meant was, stay small so we can stay powerful. Now your truth is louder than their lies, and the empire they built on illusions is turning to dust. Chosen ones, hear this loud and clear. You were never sent to kneel. You were sent to shake the damn ground. They built a system around control and called it structure. A system that only works if you stay quiet, stay agreeable, stay predictable. A system that feeds on silence and punishes clarity. But you came in with truth in your bones and fire in your chest. And they knew from the start you were a threat to everything they tried to pass off as normal. They wrapped chains in soft words. They called your submission maturity. They said, don't overreact when you felt something off. Be the bigger person when they crossed the line. Let it go when you started seeing too clearly. Every time you pushed back, they made it sound like you were the problem. Like truth was a tantrum and awareness was a flaw. But you didn't take the bait. You saw through it. You saw the cage beneath the comfort. You saw the leash they hid inside of their version of balance. You noticed how they only preached harmony when you started rising above them. That's when the rules changed. That's when the masks slipped. That's when their version of peace suddenly sounded like silencing. Because let's be real, they never wanted peace. They wanted control, and peace was just the disguise they used to dress it up. But the moment you stopped playing along, the whole game started glitching. The moment you said, no more, the walls they built started shaking. Because their power didn't come from truth. It came from the illusion that no one would challenge them. And now, that illusion is crumbling under your feet. Your clarity is the earthquake. Your awakening is the system failure. They counted on your compliance. They bet everything on your silence. But instead, you stood up and the system cracked. Because it was never built to hold someone like you. You are the blueprint breaker, the frequency disruptor, the mirror they never wanted to face. You didn't bring chaos, you brought truth. But in a world built on lies, truth is chaos. They dangled words like unity and growth like weapons, but their version of unity only worked if you were the one shrinking. And their idea of growth? It only applied when it made them look good. You were never supposed to grow past their control. You were never supposed to see the strings behind the show. But you did, and now the curtain is falling. Don't feel guilty for that. Don't mourn the system that's breaking. It was never meant to stand. It was never holy. It was never pure. It was built to contain, not to elevate. It was built to protect the fragile egos of people who only feel powerful when others are made small. But you, chosen one, you're not here to bow to systems. You're here to dismantle them. Your very existence is a disruption. Your voice, when steady, undoes lies. Your clarity doesn't just rattle their cages, it opens them. And when the truth gets out, control falls apart. That's what's happening now. That's what they're scrambling to stop. But it's too late. The collapse has started. And you you're the reason. You were never meant to get along with everyone. You were meant to outgrow the stage entirely. You were never meant to fit the frame. They're breaking it now, piece by piece, trying to stop the picture from changing. But the image has already shifted. The story is already rewritten. The old script doesn't work anymore because you walked off the page. Now they can't unsee the cracks. The lies don't land like they used to. The tactics don't work. The manipulation is tired. People are waking up, not because they wanted to, but because your awakening triggered theirs. So no, you didn't come to destroy peace. You came to destroy the illusion of peace that was actually control in disguise. You are not the threat, they are. They toiled in darkness and called it order. They suppressed, sabotaged, and silenced. And now they're exposed. The tower they built with your silence is falling because you spoke. You didn't ask for war, but now that it's here, understand, you've already won. The system is falling. The light is too strong. The pressure is too great. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight dirty. Just keep standing. Keep moving. Keep being. Because truth doesn't need violence to collapse a lie. It just needs to be seen. And now, they see you. And their entire system is breaking under the weight of what they tried to suppress. Number 8. You are truth, and that's why their lies are drowning. They never stood a chance. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't throw dirt. You didn't even move. You just stood in truth, and it shattered their entire illusion. While they schemed in shadows and lived for applause, you moved in silence, powered by something real, and that alone made their masks crack. You didn't need a crowd. You didn't need a stage. You are the stage. You are the quake that shook what they thought was solid, the blaze that exposed what they tried to bury. They called you the problem because you saw too much. But truth doesn't cause chaos. It only reveals it. Their empire was always made of glass, and the more you aligned with who you really are, the more their lies turned to dust. You're not the villain, you're the mirror, the storm, the aftermath, and now they're choking on the very poison they once used to smear you. You didn't come to destroy, you came to exist, and that was enough to end them. Because when truth shows up, performance dies, every single time. Number 9. You don't have to speak. Your presence screams what their souls can't handle. You never needed a stage to shake the room. Your presence alone shifts the air. You are the storm and the stillness. You walk in and the atmosphere changes. Why? Because you're not powered by applause. You're powered by alignment, by truth, by a force they'll never understand, let alone duplicate. They tried to steal your words, mirror your moves, echo your message, but it always fell flat, because presence can't be faked, essence can't be copied. You're not just a vibe, you're a frequency, and when you show up, everything built on lies starts to tremble. They wanted you to doubt yourself, to question your impact, to go quiet. But you were never meant to be muted. You were meant to set fire to illusion. They wore masks. You burned the whole stage down just by standing still. You didn't chase attention. It came to you, not because you're loud, but because you're real. And in a world full of performers, the real ones make the most noise without even opening their mouths. You were born to expose, born to shift, born to break the system by simply walking in truth. You are the presence they pretend to be. Number 10. Let them tremble. You are the shift they can't outrun. Stop looking back. Stop chasing closure from the very ones who lit the match and ran. Their collapse is not your burden to carry. You don't owe softness to sabotage. You don't owe peace to the people who tried to bury you under lies. You outgrew the limits they placed on your name. You bloomed in soil soaked with betrayal. They poisoned the ground, and still you rose. not just alive, but fireproof, refined, untouchable. They crowned themselves kings and queens of cardboard castles, built on ego and illusion. And now, the universe is tearing down their fake throne, editing their script, and removing their spotlight without asking permission. Because universal law doesn't negotiate with deception. You didn't just survive them, you outlived their lies. You rewrote the entire narrative. So let them tremble, let them plot, let them whisper your name with shaky breath. You already won when you refused to fold. You already shifted the room by simply standing tall. You are the shift, the turning point, the ending they never saw coming. Let them pace, let them panic. You're not coming back to explain. You're moving forward to reign. And now, chosen ones, let this sink deep. You were never broken, just becoming. Every betrayal, every silence, every fake smile was fuel for your rise. You are not who they tried to reduce. You are who the universe raised in fire. The shift isn't coming. You are the shift. If this message hit your spirit, like this video, subscribe to stay aligned with truth, and drop the number 77 in the comments to let others know you're still standing. Share this with another chosen one who needs the reminder. They didn't win. You woke up.